Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And in studio, I have a guest that she even walked up and said, I know we've been taking no time to get going, but as they always say, the time is now. That's the perfect time. Some things definitely take a while to wait on, even if they are literally. Well, I mean, you got to have a heck of an arm to it, but stones throw away when it comes to connecting in neighborhoods. So before taking on the position of a large organization in my neighborhood, a lot of other history where it goes into like more so I say like organizing folks, a little bit political, and knowing a lot of the people that I looked up to because we share some of the same OGs.
Yep.
You guys saw I did a post recently on Judge Morcom, and we love Judge Morcom,
Oh my
but I've had
gosh.
other great OGs too. And one of those great OGs was the lead of the organization that she sits at now. Portia, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad we
Thank
finally
you.
got it connected. Like, we've
Yeah.
been trying this for a minute now, and
Hey,
it took us a while, but
it
like you said,
takes
the right
time.
time is right now. So,
Exactly.
there you go.
Exactly. When you know what I'm saying, organizing multiple people,
Listen.
it can take some time amongst
Yes.
just anything yourself sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I always start these off with like a person's Detroit story, but I first got to like just give that ground game, and I'm gonna do something even longer. But
Okay.
Focus Hope, you're at the helm of Focus Hope. I think
Yeah.
in most recent memory to a lot of people, like in a wave where you were like, yo, connecting to like really breaking down the children's center, the food program, and the trainings, and then the outreach, and then the outreach is not just centered in Detroit, with so many shifts of programming where people need assistance, and Focus Hope started in that foundation. I know that hit the waves of many people where they're like, oh man, I didn't even know Focus Hope does all this stuff.
Right, right. Well, I've been there now. This is my 8th year. We are 58 years old at Focus Hope, which means we are one of the longest standing organizations in the city of Detroit. And when I came, we were doing a lot of things. We were doing a little bit of, I say a little bit of everything, which was both good and bad. We had a little bit of, I like to call it mission creep. A lot of organizations have that mission creep where you start trying to do everything. I kind of subscribe to the philosophy that all money's not good money. So, sometimes, much to my CFO's disappointment, I would have to turn down some stuff. But I really thought it was important to get back to the core of why Focus Hope was started. And really, we were started as an advocacy organization, which people don't realize. We started after the 1967 rebellion that happened in our backyard, right? Right here, up and down Claremont, second, on all the streets in, when you're coming up the lodge, as I like to say, you see all the streets that you get off, and that's where the rebellion happened. And really, Father Cunningham, who is an icon in this community, and Eleanor Jositis, a suburban housewife from Taylor, Michigan, decided they wanted to start Focus Hope. And so we really right now are focused on how we can help people, particularly right now when the need is so crucial, right? So whether that is our early learning program, where we still have about 7 to 10 classrooms open, where little ones, as I call them, our babies to our 3-4-year-olds come in, and get sort of the beginning starts of their educational journey, or our workforce development education, where we're taking some of our high school graduates and our young adults and figuring out where they go next. And then, of course, our senior food program, which I will say that people still ask me about the cheese. The cheese is different now, so it's not as great as it used to be. It doesn't make as great a grilled cheese. It's not as perfect for macaroni and cheese, but it's still there. It's still part of it. But, what's really... I keep saying to people, I wish that we would be out of the food business, right? That would mean that every senior had food that they needed. But the reality of it is not only our seniors, but our families are feeling more food insecurity than they have in a long time. And so, we're going to continue to do that work as well and kind of grow. I mean, we've been a Detroit-based organization. We're going to always be a Detroit-based organization. I tell people we're in the same place that your grandmother came to. I remember when there was a Wonder Bread right down the street. Those who are in this neighborhood remember that. But the reality of it is that, the need is a little bit farther out now. And, and I make that point because truthfully, a lot of times people want to look at a Detroit organization and say, y'all just serving people in Detroit. And the truth is there are hungry people in Oakland County, Washtenaw County, Wayne County, Macomb County. We got 5 counties in the thumb. We took some food a couple months ago to the UP. And that's because, food insecurity and hunger doesn't really care what race you are or where you live.
You got that right, especially as just a lot of things have shifted for so many reasons that we could look at. Some of it political, some of it just societal, some of it just these processes and systems.
Yeah.
So as you just broke down like so eloquently a lot of what Focus Hope offers. As I say, my relationship was with, rest in peace, Eleanor Jositis. I still sometimes think to myself, like when I was younger, it's like I had these relationships with these people. Like, how did this stuff happen? You know what I'm saying? And they kind of knew me just as like, that's the guy that raps. But the roots of Focus Hope really starts at the roots of a lot of the boldness and confidence, a lot of like Father Cunningham organizing around the Church of Madonna, which I don't even know if people like make those relationships. And sadly, like things that you think wouldn't be happening back then, still kind of happen now.
Absolutely.
And it was a lot of, at the time, as doing, I guess, how you define white flight in the city of Detroit. But as many white residents were leaving the city of Detroit, a lot of the grocery stores were stocking food that was not fresh, meats that were bad, things that like a lot of organizing in and around. And Father Cunningham was like already kind of in the mix of that. And he would, I'm giving you guys more so the Eleanor side of the story, as she would say. He would like say, we can do this. Like it would be like very long and elaborate list.
Yep.
A couple of times I'm like, all right, I'm with you. And then a couple of times it's like, all right, we got to walk that back.
Walk it back.
You know what I'm saying?
You get into too much, right? Like Father Cunningham had such big ideas about all the things. And listen, he wasn't wrong. All of it needed to be done.
Yeah.
It was just trying to tackle what they could tackle and making sure this is an organization that, like I said, is 58 years old. You can't be 58 years old if you're trying to do everything, right?
No.
And so, I mean, I think that's sort of what I thought about when I first came to Focus Hope is where are we good? What lanes are we good in at Focus Hope, right?
Yeah.
And where do people know us? What lane do people know us for? And how can we build on that rather than try to, get into areas that aren't really our specialty. We are blessed to have NSO right down the street. And,
definitely,
they take care of the unhoused population. And so if somebody comes through my doors, I don't need to start figuring out how to take care of somebody. I need to refer them to an organization that does this work and does it very well, so that we can, when that person gets on solid ground and is ready to start thinking about employment, can come back to our doors and say, hey, I need a job now. Can you help me out? And that's where we fall in.
And even the arcs of like the way that the community has like shifted, connected to that footprint, as you talked about the NSO, the Bell Building.
Yep.
I mean, I remember it as a kid. It's like it was like this big.
Yep.
If you're young enough, you don't even know what a Yellow Pages is. But at one point in time,
there was a book. You had to look up numbers in it. You looked them up by their last name.
Exactly.
The white pages and the yellow pages.
So the Bell Building was one of the former buildings that the telephone company had, but it was this big clock. So neighbors over here, we like never had an excuse for like a time when you're supposed to be back home.
Because you didn't have to worry about the street lights. You had a whole clock to tell you it's time to go home now.
Yeah, exactly. So that footprint in that building now is the NSO, and just that clock itself, I don't even know where it is, but I'm sure that's a part of Detroit history that will like always exist. And then also some of the things that Jason Wilson is doing in the community. The Detroit police even have like more like training facilities for officers. Michigan State was doing something. Like the footprint has spread with a lot of some of the things that were offered, but some of those pivots really began, another part of the Eleanor story, after Father Cunningham passed. Many condolences, but it was like some of the first waves of where things go. And we've seen this before, like when an organization has man leadership and then shifts to woman leadership, some of those calls that were always coming and getting answered, somewhere it gets lost in translation. And being very creative and how would I say, like being very creative and skillful about building relationships.
Absolutely. I mean, like right now, we have Michigan State still there in one of our buildings. They have like an agricultural program there. We have Human IT, which for Detroiters who may not realize it, there's a location, a store, so to speak, on 7 Mile and Livernois that works with, they refurbish computers,
Mhm.
tablets, those kind of things. They were very, very instrumental in what we could do during the pandemic and making sure our seniors who were not connected, who couldn't get connected to their families, couldn't see their families, couldn't just stop by or have their
Mhm.
grandchildren, children drop by, could get connected on tablets and computers. So they're in our one of our buildings across the street in one of Focus Hope Soul buildings, Advantage Health.
Mhm.
So it really is sort of morphed into a block
Mm.
where you have a lot of different parts and a lot of different opportunities, I guess, for
Yeah.
people. And that's a lot. That has a lot to do, as you said, with Eleanor Jositis and her ability to build partnerships and
Mhm.
welcome people into, sort of the footprint of Focus Hope,
Definitely.
where it's like it just doesn't have to be just Focus Hope. It can be some folks from
Mhm.
other places that do other things.
Very, very much so. And like, as I say, like the relationship that
Right.
even we started and her being supportive in like some early events and stuff. And it's like, what you want to do? But yeah, definitely that. And in it, I know you were connected like other, another great that, I don't know is uplifted enough, but like through the legacy of when we think of like even Irma Henderson bringing together like her Detroit Women's Council and like how often knowledge and information will be shared, and Marianne Mahaffey, and like it's like an era in time of like 80s 90s Detroit where it was some strong bonds being built from women that were navigating spaces and knowing that like, all right, we have to bring in
Oh yeah.
some other generations to kind of know how navigating this is, because I mean, even in 2026 today, for so many reasons,
It doesn't
it's still
happen. Right.
so many biases
Yeah.
on gender that exist in
It
America.
and, it's interesting to me. I mean, first of all, there are so many what I call my little sisters, and they they
Mhm.
they let me call them,
Yeah.
my little sisters because they are strong women in their own right doing incredible things. Charity Dean,
Yeah.
Megan Dunn,
Mm.
Summer Woods, like all of them who, Tiffany Jackson, all of
Mm.
them who are doing just incredible, incredible work in different arenas, some at
Mhm.
nonprofits, some at their own businesses. Angelique Powers from Skillman,
Oh,
like we
yeah,
all
definitely.
connect and sort of have a connection and lean on each other and certainly, I think learn from one another.
Mhm.
Some of us have been doing it a little bit longer than others, some because they're younger and have been, have better ideas than I do,
Yeah.
and I welcome that. But I do think, it's interesting because we come from Detroit is has such a rich history of women and men
Yeah.
sort of coalescing around each other,
Mhm.
protecting one another, growing Detroit in so many ways. It has troubled me over time sometimes that we had got away from that. I think,
Mm.
inherently, particularly for Black men and women in Detroit,
Mm.
I see a lot of chatter about us versus them, which
Yeah.
I just I don't think you can be a Detroiter and not understand that legacy and not sort of push back on these ideas that we have to be fighting with one another.
Mhm.
Um, because, I think of the Irma Hendersons and the Coleman Youngs. I mean, you can't
Mm.
be a Detroiter, which I am, and not remember how
Yeah.
people work to get things done and not for themselves, but for the city.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. And strong anchors in community, which goes into usually how I start these. Your family background. How many generations deep are your peoples to Detroit?
Well, actually, now my father and my mother both came from the South. My mother
Okay.
came from the Delta of Mississippi.
All right.
Her sister was already here
Mm.
and she came up here and she actually went to Mumford High School.
Okay.
So she's, not born here, but I say
Raised
raised here.
here. Okay.
if you go to high school here,
Okay.
she went to Mumford,
All right.
played basketball.
All right.
She was a Mumford Mustang.
All
My
right.
dad is from Mobile, Alabama, a little town
Wow.
outside of Mobile,
Okay.
Alabama called Mount Vernon. He did
Mm.
not come here until after he had left high school or
Mm.
training school, as they
I
called it
got
in
you.
the South.
I got you.
Um, But he came here to work at Ford,
All right.
or Fords, as Detroiters like to say.
Definitely.
And spent a couple years there and decided maybe like a year, maybe 2 years, ended up deciding that it was too hard and went to the Air Force instead.
Ain't that something?
Right. When Ford is harder than the Air Force is
Oh, man.
interesting. And then came back and went to Michigan State. And ironically, and I love to tell this story, my dad took the bus down with a friend of his who was applying to Detroit College of Law, which is now part of Michigan State as well.
Yeah.
And the dean who was doing admissions asked my dad, well, why aren't you applying? He's like, oh, I just came down with my friend.
Wow.
And he said to my dad, well, why don't you apply? And he did. He was working at the welfare office. And he applied. He obviously, finished law school, became a lawyer, and ultimately ended up being a judge and at some point was the chief judge of what was then called Recorder's Court. It's now called Wayne County Circuit Court. So I feel like, I was born here. I was raised here. I've only really lived in D.C. Other than here, and that was only for 4 years for a very specific reason.
Yes.
And even when I left, there were a lot of folks that thought I would not come back, and I was like, Detroit is home. I always tease people, like, if you've never been here, you need to pay to get in because it's nothing like Detroit. I just think that it is, I remember when I lived in D.C., I wrote a letter back for a magazine at the time about, it was sort of like a love letter to Detroit. And I was like, Ben's Chili Bowl still has nothing on the Coney Island.
Somebody in D.C. was looking at that like, what is she talking about?
Right. They didn't know exactly what I was talking about. McNichols will always be 6 Mile, but, 7 Mile is always just 7 Mile. Like, there's no other name. I mean, that is my affection for the city of Detroit and for its not only its survival, but it's flourishing. So I'm excited about the direction we're going in now. I'm excited to have a Black woman as mayor of the city of Detroit. It definitely feels like a breath of fresh air.
I love it. I definitely on so many of those things, and now I gotta pull apart some of the Legos. Let's go start with that neighborhood. When you think of the neighborhood you grew up in, what's the one that's like that's the neighborhood?
Oh, I grew up Avenue of Fashion, Livernois.
Oh, man.
West Side. I'm a Northwest girl.
All right.
And I think of the Avenue of Fashion. I think of walking up there.
Okay.
I went to Hampton Elementary School.
All right.
So I went to Cass,
All right.
But Mumford would have
Hallie. Kids from Hampton would be like, kids on the bus.
Yeah, exactly. So, to me, it was like paradise. I mean, it might sound crazy, but it was kids all over the place, riding your bikes, waiting till the street lights came on, rather.
Yeah.
I was with my niece the other night, and I was taking her home, and we came up 6 Mile, and I stopped at the, I think it's there's a Citgo across the street, but it was like a Mobile or a BP.
Okay.
There's a BP on the corner right near Jesu Elementary School.
Okay, I know exactly
and I told
the
her
intersection you're talking about.
that there was a secret street. And she's like, what are you talking about, Auntie Portia? And there's this little street sort of between Oak Drive and Birchcrest, between 7 and 6, closer to 6 Mile. And it's not really a street. It's like a little, almost like an alley, but it has a street name. I can't think of it right now. Forgive me. But it had like a park on it. And so I took her down there, and it's like these houses, and there's this little park there. And I told her, like, we used to ride our bikes over here when we were little. Like, this was like secret. It was like, there's a park here and nobody else knows about it. So, I mean, that's what I remember. I've been a downtowner basically my entire adult life. And I love that too. But I think, this environment, like I said, I remember Wonder Bread being on the corner here, coming to get Hostess cupcakes with my mom,
To the point where that stretch of 12th Street at one point was Twinkie Lane.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when my dad came here from Alabama, he lived on Burlingame. My mom lived on Sturdivant. So,
that was like right in the mix next to each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this was... this was a neighborhood I grew up in. My cousin still lives in the house that, my aunt has right off of Dexter.
That's what's up. Yeah, as you said, your aunt was the first person here anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like
both
you
of
can
my
thank your
I had
aunties.
two aunts. I had,
they was already both here.
Yeah, they were already here. I remember Dot and Edda's on Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
Stopping there. Even coming home from college, going there and getting, you had to, these are old stories. So I feel old
but Dot
sharing
and
them.
Edda's, so I can, like right now they have, or I at least noted, shout out to Chef E, but in Eastern Market.
They do the pop-up kind of.
Yeah, they'll do the pop-up, I think, with like the the generation that lives. So like if you ever were a part of nighttime culture in Detroit at one iteration, it was a couple places that would be open. Coney Island would be one, and Dotnetta's would be open. Like, I want to say, I don't even know when they closed, because it's like we would leave the club and then it's like, okay, we could get fish. If we had enough money for fish and shrimp, we're there. Or, Coney Island is an option. But Dotnetta's had a lot of energy because of that.
Because of that, right.
Yeah,
and I remember, like, I was telling somebody the story the other day, how you would go to Dotnetta's and you would buy your shrimp and it would come in like a bag and it would be greasy, but it would be so
very
good.
Much so.
But you had to get your pop a Faygo, like a grape Faygo out the machine. Like, they didn't sell like a pop across the counter. You had to go to the machine and put your coins in and get your Faygo pop.
Yes. And many colorful conversations. Also, especially the later it got.
Right. So I may be dating myself and admitting that I have been at times a part of the nightlife culture of Detroit. But hey,
definitely still, like, I mean, so many stories of like these places that used to exist. I mean, when we moved over to Russell Woods, we were down the street from Esquire Corned Beef, and then like everybody'd be like, "Oh man, Esquire!" Another place where it'd be a lot of colorful interactions. At one point in time, So yeah, you talk about that community, that neighborhood. I don't think we get enough of these stories, but I'm gonna just pitch it out. Palmer Park. Did you guys like connect in Palmer Park a lot as younger, or was it just too far out the other way?
I think we did. I think we, did a lot at Palmer Park, and I'm trying to think, like, the pool. They used to have a pool. I don't know. I think they still do.
The pool is still there. That was how I remember it when I was a kid. It seemed like, I don't know how this would happen, because I had a cousin that swam, so we would go to different places to swim. It's like if the pool was open at 3, it seemed like by 3:05 it was you couldn't get
in. Right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, did we ride our bikes there?
Or get dropped off or whatever.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, Palmer Park was just such a big part of Detroit, right? And just that side of town. I remember, more so than like swimming at Palmer Park. I remember Northwest Activity Center. My brother was running. He broke his arm. We had to he had to get a cast. But I mean, I remember Northwest Activity Center being like a hub for, my family. Like, my dad worked out there, that was a whole thing.
Well, that story is like, now that directly connects to Misha's Star Wars story. Like, I didn't even know like the background of like, okay, that was a Jewish community center.
Yeah.
Then her grandma like, no, we about to keep this going for our people, and just carries it on.
It carries it on. And I mean, it's a beautiful center. If you haven't been, you should check it out. I mean, it's a gorgeous center, right?
If you're from Detroit and haven't been invited to like a cabaret or a graduation party or something that goes on there, I mean, it's like, what part of Detroit are you from?
What part are you from? So, I mean, I definitely am deep on the Northwest side, and even probably familiar with the far west. But, my mother, I always used to joke, my mother used to like to shop like a lot of women. And so we never saw a mall we didn't like. So I never felt, when I moved downtown, people were like, where are you going to shop? I'm like, Eastland? Like, I don't understand. Like, why would I not be going there? Because I don't live on that side of town. Like, because we'd always been going there, right?
I don't know why. I was just had an interview where we were talking about this. It's like West Side, like Eastland was the Northland of the East Side to a lot of people. Yeah,
it was. No. And listen, I am very clear that people who lived on the East Side never came to the West Side. Northland was like foreign territory for them, even though it wasn't in the city of Detroit. And then a lot of us on the West Side never went to the East Side, right? But luckily for me, my dad loved to drive too. Like, he would love to put us in the car. So like, he and my brother and myself, we would get in the car and just drive around. To this day, I'm telling you, there are people who will call me up and be like, I'm at such and such, and how do I get to such and such? Wow. And I can pretty much tell them, because I'm now a driver as well. Like, I like to get in the car and just roll like through the neighborhoods. I like to see what's happening. I like to know what's going on, even if it's not my neighborhood. Like, I'm big on like, hey, you're new to town. Let's go to Brightmoor. Let's go check out this part,
I'm that in the sense of like a couple. I like just the cruise, good sound. It's as I've often uplifted before. It's a poor man date, but it's also cool because
It's
like
a cool
I pick a
date.
song, you pick a song.
Right,
You know what I'm
exactly,
saying?
exactly.
And you don't necessarily need a destination because so many. You end up like possibly like, okay, let's go to this taco
Right,
truck or something.
right.
And like you say, you find out more of what's just happening in and around the city.
I love to show people where Edgewater Park used to be
Oh,
before it was
man.
Greater Grace. Like,
Oh,
I'm
man.
like, you don't understand. Now, I don't understand why our parents ever let us get on the ride to Edgewater because it was like taking your life in your own hands. But let me tell you something. An amusement park in the city,
Yeah.
like that you could just, your mom and dad could get up one day and be like, we going to Edgewater. And it was like right there. It was
I
like,
found out about Edgewater after the fact through these interviews. I'm like, for real?
it was a full amusement park.
The one thing I guess close to that, and also that when I think about my friends that stay like in your neck of the woods too, was it was really close to the state fair. So like I had friends that would go to the state fair like almost every day, whereas me, I have to like kind of like pick and choose a day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if you were close, it was like, oh man, we're gonna go to the concert. Like, okay, for somebody watching, the Michigan State Fair was probably like whatever state, like almost like a carnival you would expect, but they would have performers that we love because they're not like, it's not like the Beyonce version, but this person is about to be like a mega star. Like if you're about to be a mega star, I just remember
you would start at the state fair.
Yeah.
You might be Usher starting when he started out at the state fair. But let's be clear. I have a full picture in my office right now of me with New Edition that was at the state fair. Like
you see what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And they had hit already.
Okay.
But they were becoming adults. So they had hit as children. They had like morphed into like who they were after Bobby left. And so, they were at the state fair. So we got a chance to check them out.
Candy Girl. Right. And it wasn't any Heartbreak.
Right. Exactly. It was somewhere in between that, but they were still good and they were at the state fair.
I'm not your kind of you're not my kind of girl. New Edition.
Exactly.
Which we love New Edition.
Exactly.
I mean, it's to the point now where like New Edition is getting into a zone, like looking at some of the clips. I think they're just gonna sell out no matter where they go.
I agree. I'm like, they are our generation's people are gonna call into you and complain about me saying this, but they're like our temptations are four tops.
But they kind of like it. I mean, I got into a debate kind of in Rest in Peace, but like even as time went on with Frankie Beverly and Maze, I'm like, he not even really, it's like he not. We love Frankie Beverly.
We do. And look, but there was no new albums coming out from Frankie Beverly at the tours. Like we weren't going for the new Frankie Beverly and Maze. We all go because we know every song.
Yeah.
We know every vibe, and he's going to sell out whenever he comes. And that literally looks like it's going to be New Edition going forward.
I would say it's
everybody in Detroit was at their concert a couple weeks ago.
And I'm looking at the clips, and I'm like, that's not. Bobby's not, this isn't the prerogative Bobby Brown.
No, it is not. This is you can get this dancing or you can get this singing, but you can't get both Bobby Brown.
Let me get a stool
right.
to stand up. But, we know the songs.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, that's also like part of the love. And they're kind of, I always, just from my music days, I find it interesting. Any black act that like can sell out massive theaters with like predominantly black audiences, I always see like it's different. And New Edition is that, Maze is that. It's a couple others that are like that. But oftentimes, and it's no offense, you know what I'm saying, to like get your fan base no matter what.
Right.
But like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you see, if we see some of our white friends at a New Edition concert, it's like you're a different type of ally.
And it looked like there were some folks that were there.
Listen, a different type of ally.
We're going to all be at the Eminem concert. We're going to be 50 plus. He's a grandfather, once, twice over now?
Yeah,
so, I mean, at this point,
definitely.
This going to be our generations that are there, right?
It's already there. It's already there. I was like, it was like somebody when I was talking, shout out to her too, Tiffany Gunter, and she was talking about her, her daughter was at like this karaoke, and I'm like, I don't even know what they'd be singing. And she was like, they was singing Keisha Cole. I'm like, that'd been like us singing Gladys Knight.
Yep. But
way back in the day for them.
But I love some Gladys Knight, and I can, Midnight Train to Georgia, I could probably do that in karaoke.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And also, this is something else for anybody watching. And you'll hear this often of anybody that comes. Karaoke in the city of Detroit is like these people are really talented. It's not like, I'm having some fun with friends. It's
Right.
like people like, all right, man, this is like real talent.
This is real talent. And this is why I don't get on a mic, because I know I don't have any real talent, but I will go to observe the talent that is in Detroit that has always been a part of Detroit. But I will hold back my singing to just in my vehicle.
Yeah. And of that, another shout out. Shout out to Sky Covington, like doing like different iterations with so many great vocalists of like honoring a lot of other great vocalists. Which go into after high school, after Cass, where do you go?
I went to Michigan.
Okay, U of M.
4 years in Ann Arbor. Then I came home, went to Wayne's Law School.
Okay.
And then sort of started my career, hung up a shingle, so to speak, as a lawyer, started doing primarily criminal defense work. And I did that for about 7 years, in the courtrooms, in the hallways of the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. Learned probably more. My dad used to tell me all the time, like, learn how to practice law and you'll be okay. Like, learn how to really be in the courtroom and learn how to really practice law. And I didn't get it then. I totally get it now. But it was, a learning experience. Some of the greatest lawyers I know have been lawyers, in Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. Our former U.S. Attorney, Dawn Eisen, Otis Culpepper, Charles Lusby. There's just so many. I can't even name. Gerald Evelyn. There's so many. I mean, and when I say, like, I know that there are people who get national attention. We all know who Johnny Cochran was and from big cases. But those women and men, and judges, like you said, Judge Morecambe, like they were, first of all, a lot of them, like Judge Morecambe, were first in the legal community, first Black woman, first this, first that. But the lawyers just learned how to really advocate for their clients. And surprisingly, I did it a little backwards. Usually people are prosecutors first and then come to criminal defense work. I was a criminal defense attorney first and then went to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office as an assistant Wayne County prosecutor. And I think for me, it was beneficial because I had a different mindset about somebody going to prison, right? I recall that they used to send out an email if you got a conviction, right? And I remember saying to one of my supervisors, that he sent out she got a conviction on such and such case. And I said, listen, I'm not celebrating that. Those people look like me, and we sort of operate at Focus Hope, and I'm sure if you talk to somebody over there, they would tell you that they've heard me say it, but for the grace of God. So to me, it wasn't really something to be sending out an email celebrating. I guess in their head, it was a win, but it wasn't a win to me, But I did that for a couple years, and then I actually went and worked for our former mayor for the second time because I worked for him as an assistant Wayne County prosecutor. Then I went and worked with him at the Detroit Medical Center. Got out of criminal law, had been doing it for some time, and decided that I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do criminal law anymore, and got to the DMC and was like, please, please, please take me back to the courtroom. I do not like sitting in a box reviewing contracts and doing that kind of thing. And so I was there for only about 2 years. And then I was really, really lucky. I went to Ohio to help a friend do voter protection when Barack Obama, senator at the time, was running for president. And they had a primary, because I love politics as well. They had a primary. Michigan didn't have an early primary that year. And so I went to do voter protection, be basically in the places where people were voting, making sure nothing untoward was going on. And met a guy who ended up really sort of changing the direction of things for me, because when he ended up becoming the deputy state director for the Michigan Campaign for Change, which was the Obama campaign, he hired me to do the political stuff for Michigan and for this region. And I did that for, the entirety of the 2008 campaign. And
wait, I got
stop me, because I'll keep talking. You know me. I'll
for
keep
a
going.
moment, and we got to unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start there, and then I have some questions also about Recorder's Court. But we'll go back to that. But just so people kind of get a reality of like what that moment in time in 2007 and leading up to 2008 was for just for America first. So it's like a couple steps. It's like America, then you get Black America, and what that moment meant to so many people. that just never thought like a reality like that would manifest. And it's hard to even like crystallize it
Yeah.
of the momentum and the movement that started with a Barack Obama and moving towards presidency. But if how I remember it, this is kind of where we're at. Like I said, my first election was that Gore one. So like I mean, myself and I think many other Americans were like, all right, George W. is like the worst thing that we
Right.
could ever deal with. And Barack Obama gives a speech at the 2006 Democratic Convention. And from that speech, you're like, he's a very young senator, but he's on target with about the ways that we need to get out of these conflicts across the world. We can open up better communications with other nations. And you're like, who is this? I'm like, I don't even know who that guy really is. And, you know, and he doesn't have like a strong political history. In studying it, it was like, you know, people were like, hey man, he just wants to get $1 from you. So I'm like one of the first people that give to like the online. And I mean, I know you guys are looking at this like, you gave money online? Back then, giving money online was still not so trusted and younger people would. So I give like $1. Then my sister's like, I'm giving $5 like every other week. And then we just start trading. And then other people kind of grow. But it becomes like a momentum and movement. Like really to the point where he gave a speech and you had to be in the room, but he gave a speech at the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. And leading up to that speech, like if you guys can it's hard to even think to yourself, but like at that time, him giving the speech, like when the notice went out to the Michigan Citizen at the time, it was like people were like, hey, we don't know who's gonna come. By the time that speech happens, it's like really standing room only.
Yeah. Yeah. I will tell you that just to give you like my background, I remember going to a fundraiser before he was a senator. Maybe he was running for senator. And I tell people this all the time. I remember at the end, like he had a fundraiser. And when he was leaving, or when I was leaving, I can't even remember which one it was. I literally said to him, all right, it was nice to meet you, Barack, and called him by his first name. Because that's how basically under the radar he was. And like, it wasn't like you weren't like looking at him at that moment like he might be president of the United States. He was just sort of like filtering towards, you know, like, okay, this could happen. Now, you know, there are a lot of political things that happen, right?
Very much so.
He wouldn't have become a senator in Chicago, but for his opponent imploded, right? You know, I don't know that he would have won that race otherwise.
I mean, he lost
against Bobby Rush for Congress.
Bobby Rush for Congress. So a lot of people kind of had that in their mind.
And a lot of people were upset because Bobby Rush had done some amazing things. And it was sort of like, well, you're going to challenge Bobby Rush? Like, what, you know? And so people kind of wrote him off then. And then the Senate seat comes up and he's like, I'm going to do this. But at that point, again, like I said, I was calling him by his first name because he wasn't, you know, I was like, good luck, you know, but like nobody was really thinking like, okay. We also at that point had, as we still do, very few black senators. So, you know, it was like, let me just get on board with that because maybe the possibility is there. I'm gonna give him some money just because.
I gotta put a pin in that. Another thing, shout out to my big sister Dar. Like we sometimes talk politics, but even in kind of going back to how we started, I personally felt that as the adage goes in our community, a lot of people in the Democratic Party put a battery in the back of Jasmine Crockett. And when I think I'm 43 now, and my whole life, I want to say it's been 5 black senators. Period. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's 100 of those seats that exist.
And it's crazy that we don't have more.
And it's tough. And because I'm putting Tim Scott in that mix too,
which we
you know,
put
we
him
could
in
argue.
because,
Exactly. But I'm just speaking on the facts alone.
Right.
It's like my whole life. It's like Carol Moseley Brown, Tim Scott, Barack Obama and Jesse Jackson Jr. in my mind kind of like mesh. We're looking at Kamala Harris. It's like, what is going on?
Warnock and Booker. That's it. That's your whole group, pretty much. Oh, and then I'm sorry. Recently it's Massachusetts, I think, and Maryland. 2 women. Whose names will fail me right now, which shame on me.
I don't think it's like it's like for real? But you know.
So I mean, so yeah, the movement that happened out of people seeing the possibility, and let's be very clear, there were a ton of Black folks, myself included, that thought this is not gonna happen.
I mean, most
Even
people did.
even as I was going to do voter protection, even as, I was like, okay, they're gonna set up a campaign here and you want me to work there. But I had left the DMC. So I was like,
Mm,
okay, I gotta do something, right? I was
yeah.
practicing a little law, but but there was a real doubt, right?
I mean, I wanna
And
say it was a lot of doubt
right,
because, I mean, the opponent, like, we can't even necessarily get to, like, a John McCain as a Republican opponent, but, like, you're looking at very tenured, Democratic, like, and when I say the coffers of money were, like, full, it's like,
right,
you know
right.
you know
And I think, it's what they say. Like we couldn't really believe it because we had never seen it and we
Yeah,
couldn't even imagine it. And
yeah,
like I said, that came along and I was, on that campaign and I remember, calling my father from we came out of what they call the war room
mm,
down at the Marriott and
mm,
he had been proclaimed the winner and I called my parents and my dad started to cry on the
wow,
phone because, he was from Mount Vernon, Alabama. Like
yeah,
he was probably at that time, he's deceased now, but probably early 70s
mm,
maybe, and
mm.
he
Oh, I mean, yeah, you coulda put
never
like, if you'd have
imagined
had Vegas odds
right,
for, like,
you
somebody
coulda
like that, and it's
never
like, "Hey, in your lifetime, you think a
right.
black person gonna be president?" It's like,
Name
"Oh,
Barack Obama, Barack
yeah, well, that
Hussein
too, yeah,
Obama, like,
exactly,
add
yeah,
all the things, right?
yeah,
And that's why is to a certain extent, um, it it's interesting to watch people and I get it. Criticism,
mhm,
you can criticize. There were things that, I worked there, I worked at the Justice Department, further down my career, I was appointed by him. And so but there's still things I disagree with him about,
yeah,
right? Um, but it's interesting how there are folks who, like, particularly online, who are and Black folks who are so adamantly against it. Oh, he didn't do anything. Oh,
mhm,
he's just like Trump or,
mhm,
blah, blah, blah. Maybe those are valid arguments, but I'm like, if he hadn't done what he did, we would never be in a position to even have that argument, right? We
mhm,
would never be in a position to even have the ability, I think, really to have that argument. We'd still be arguing over George W. Bush
yeah,
and God knows, and Trump maybe, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And so it's sort of like I'm grateful that we are in a position that we can have that sort of dialogue,
mhm,
but I'm also like, let's put a little respect on the fact that it happened because it wasn't a guarantee, right? It was
no,
not something that any of us have really imagined.
no. And furthermore than that, like, I think, because 'cause I've definitely said this, that, or the like, I think oftentimes, and thank you all for supporting Detroit is Different. I'm usually just uplifting in my Capricorn mind, like, another way of looking at things, but, obviously, it's unprecedented. Anytime you step into anything that's unprecedented, it's gonna be new. You're Black stepping into that, it's especially gonna be more strenuous. When I look at, when I look at what the staple I remember from his presidency of both terms was he worked like hell to push, healthcare through, for Americans. And due to what our system has, the Affordable Health Care Act and where it stood in the iterations, this is what it's come to, which involves many other, congressional members and things like that. But, like, if you can imagine the the vitriol and fight that was tough. And at the time I'm going to Walsh College, so I'm debating so many like conservative Republican professors of mine that are just like for no reason. And it's like, yo, he just want to keep people alive. So it's like if I'm going through a fight like this for, hey, I think being that we're like one of the wealthiest nations in the world, we should probably have what almost every other country in the world has. And if
Basic health care.
that's a
Right.
vitriolic fight, I mean, how do you even get past point two? It's like I'm trying to keep your grandma alive, and it's
Right.
like, what are you talking about?
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the other thing that I think people don't realize. When I started practicing law,
Mhm,
I just basically hung up a shingle. It was law
mm,
offices of Portia Roberson, right?
mhm,
And I would go without health insurance. I was working every day. I was trying cases. I was trying to keep people out of prison. I was, trying to work out deals. I was getting up every day and going to Frank Murphy Hall of Justice and working. Like, I wasn't sitting at home. I wasn't asking the government for a handout. The only insurance that really was available to me was the State Bar of Michigan, because this is before Obamacare or
Affordable Health
ACA,
Care Act,
whatever
yeah.
the acronym is for it.
Yeah.
And I would, like, a month before I needed to have a regular examination, I would sign up for the State Bar of Michigan and get health insurance for like 3 months. I could
And
only
then
afford it for 3
yeah.
months. I would get go to the dentist. I'd go
Yeah.
to the doctor. I'd get a yearly exam. And then I would drop it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the year, I was just sort of out here, right?
Yeah.
Like, if God forbid something tragic had happened, I'd have either had to file for bankruptcy. My parents probably would have done everything they could to save me, but they would have filed for bankruptcy. Like, the narrative that it was, we've always had some recourse, or that the people who bought into Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act were people who just weren't doing things. I'm like, I was working every day and I could not afford to have health care.
That it's like even more of a pressing issue. Like, when we go around America, now definitely there are people that struggle with, I think, certainly mental disorders that are in more destitute situations. But most people that are impoverished, it's like a direct line connection to like some health condition that people have. So like when we think of it, and even the cost of like some of these procedures, because I'm a person that's usually paying out of pocket. Like, I mean, I had, it was like, it's almost like everybody, it's like shoulder pain, but I got an MRI on my shoulder. And like, even through that was like, to get the MRI, and this was a good price on it, it was $450. So I'm like, yo, I'm glad to be in a position where I can do this. But I think to myself, like, what could it be? I mean, all the dental work
I went
that
to
you're
the
paying
dentist
for?
this morning, and the woman said, do you want, it was a teeth cleaning. That's what I went in for.
Yeah.
And like, do you want fluoride? I was like, she's like, it's not covered by your insurance. It's $25. Okay, bet. Then they come in, they're like, oh, I have I'm telling way too much. Your audience does not care about
Something
this.
else.
But nevertheless, I had a crown. They needed to do something to it. The woman walks in before she starts working on me and says, it's going to be $210. Now, part of me wanted to be like, bet, I'm going to come back and get that done. But I'm like,
I'm here. I got the time.
And
I have the luxury.
And I have the luxury of doing it. But I didn't go expecting I was going to be paying anything out of pocket.
Almost.
I thought, okay, I'll do the $25 fluoride treatment or whatever it is. But I didn't think I was going to be spending another $210 is what they charged me. I'm like, people can't do that. Like, and so, I mean, I just think you're right. The vitriol from him just trying to get basic health care for most people that they can afford to have.
And also what was uplifting, and I think really exposed during COVID-19. I know that's a tangent, but it's on point to this. Like, we end up having to deal with it and pay for it anyway. Because people end up going to, like, I don't know if anybody watching this has ever been to like the emergency, walked into the emergency, but so many people in there, that's within our system.
That's their health care.
So it's like we're still covering what this is. So it's like just putting a system together and getting people to a point where like they can at least be viable and survive, because also it causes so many other stressors when, the relatives of family you got, and they don't have insurance, and what steps up, and like, I mean, it's bad enough, you know what I mean? Like you getting a chicken and spaghetti dinner to, for a procedure that you need for a cousin. It's like, this is backwards as hell, when really we could get to damn near any other country on earth that has an airport, and they'd be like, oh, you got your arm broke? Let's fix it.
Let's fix it. That's the end of that. Like, that's what we're here for. I mean, I watched something the other day where it was about poverty and food insecurity. There was a woman, again, had a bachelor's, had a master's, was working every day, had 3 children. She was probably maybe not older than 30. Maybe she was. I don't know. But she was like, I did everything people told me to do.
Yeah.
I got the education people told me to get. I'm working every day. I feel bad because maybe I shouldn't have had children because, I can't necessarily, I'm food insecure. I don't know how I'm going to feed them every day, And so I put that out there just because I do think right now we are at one of those times where people want to blame the other side or, They really want to talk about how everybody's the same,
Yeah.
Democrats, Republicans, you're all the same, blah, 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 blah. And I understand the frustration with
Yeah.
where we are and not getting anything done. I think it is um real frustration, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think it comes from a very, very real place. But I do think that things that they are not always the same. There are people who really their mission was to fight Barack Obama, President
Oh, yeah.
Obama on everything.
Our current president
Right,
was one of them
exactly,
from outside of
exactly,
the
and
political
so
sphere.
and I think what we, are learning now is that it does really matter what we are doing, when it comes to voting, and I know that people are discouraged, and I
Yeah,
was
very
one of
much
those
so.
ones after 2024 that was like, "Imma sit back and let y'all have it," and then about 6 months in, I was like, "Okay," maybe 9 months in, I was like, "Okay, can't really completely
Mhm.
disengage from this," because I do think it matters. I don't think we would have been here had we elected Kamala Harris. I don't think we
Mhm.
would be seeing Black and brown people snatched up in the street. I don't think we would be seeing people killed in the street.
Yeah.
I don't think we would be, despite the promises that he was gonna do things differently, I've not seen it be great again. I've seen it
No.
be terrible for a lot of folks.
Yeah, very
Some who look like me, but quite honestly, for a lot of folks that don't look like me.
very much so, and that's where, like, the division we kinda even before, like, I've never felt like the tension of division, which it even gets into a lot of the apathy that exists, and it's a lot of apathy towards many things. It's almost like been a whole kick of, talking about, like, how Gen Z looks at what we consider burnout versus, like, millennials, Gen X, on and further back you go, we kinda look at, like, grind it through. So, like, some of these things that come up and, like, how we perceive it, what becomes our realities, how we look at things, but we're still such social creatures, and those interactions and those connections between one another really add to that quality of life of so many people.
Yeah,
And, as you say, like, yeah, the food insecurity when you think just the amount of food that America throws away every day.
every day.
It could feed
Everybody. We could
over more than once,
we could definitely get rid of childhood hunger,
Yeah,
and it does make you think about, like, for me, it goes back to Focus Hope. Like,
yeah,
people ask me all the time because I am, interested in politics. I ran
mhm,
for elected office.
yeah,
Would I go back to it? And I'm like, no, I don't think
mm,
so. I really think that, like, it gave me a very clear understanding of where I can serve and how I can serve. And I actually like being able to tangibly say what I did for the
mm,
day. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I like to be able to say, we fed 44,000 seniors this past
mm,
month,
that's dope.
or we helped this person. I see a family come to a graduation and I know that
Mm,
that young man or young woman is about to go out and get a job. And I know they had choices, right? I know
yeah,
I always say at the graduations, I was like, you could be a lot of other places doing a lot of other things, some good, some bad, right? But
mhm,
you've entrusted Focus Hope and we gave you everything we had. We're going to continue to help you as you progress through your career. And so for me, it really is, me being engaged politically and not being apathetic and not being so frustrated by what has happened that I turn it off completely is also about it being a direct pipeline to what I do in my day-to-day life.
definitely.
And like, I'm voting for the person that's gonna help me get the money to make sure we have the food so when our seniors pull up to 1400 Oakman, I have something to give them.
And when you talk about pulling up to 1400 Oakman, because it's in my neighborhood, so during COVID, those lines were extremely long, almost at any food bank, but still very present throughout different communities. And, shout out to the work that Forgotten Harvest and
Mhm.
others do in this area for that. The surprising thing over this time sometimes, because you can be at a point of privilege, uh, and, having the luxury of life, but, it's some of the cars that you see pull up, some of the people that pull up, these are, as they call it, and I don't even like this term. It needs to be like a better term. They say like working poor, but
Right.
these are people that, similar to like what you said about that mother, like these are people that are in positions where at one point in time, due to like different things happening, even like internationally, whatever the wages they were earning and salaries they had could keep pace with what they needed within that household for
Right.
like food, and where food insecurity is hitting and how it's hitting different people. Like, it's surprising because it's not the viewpoint of like when you guys would like the 90s TV special where it's like, hey, we're gonna go down to the soup kitchen and help. It's like you're gonna walk into some of these people that are getting food items, like people and I'm not saying just because you know a person doesn't mean that they would go through those stressors, but people that you know and are aware of are in positions that they're getting a salary, they're getting a wage, but the ends ain't meeting, as they
No.
used to say back in the day.
I mean, they work alongside you. They don't even, they work, but they work alongside you. They may be your family member. There are so many reasons why people are food insecure.
Mhm.
It may be just 1 month, but it may be, it may be an ongoing problem. And
Yeah.
listen, particularly now where we see how high food costs are, groceries are expensive.
Oh, I mean,
When I go, I'm like, oh,
groceries are very
I'm
expensive.
like, it's expensive. I mean, it's not, people are out here grinding, as you said, and
Yeah.
trying to do the very best that they can. But things cost a lot, right? The cost of living, the cost of a home, the cost of renting a place, it goes up. It seems like every few months it goes up
it's
more
never,
and more,
it never
and
goes
so
down.
right, it doesn't go back down. And that's also why I say though
No.
too, because I think again, we are very much Focus Up is very much a Detroit organization. We're proud to be a Detroit-based organization and have been a part of this community and a part of the city for so long.
Yeah.
But I do make a point of saying now, we're in Washtenaw.
Yeah.
We're in Macomb.
Mhm.
We're in Oakland. We're in Lapeer. We're in
Yeah.
Tuscola. We're in St. Clair. And I say that not because I'm trying to shame anybody who's not a Detroiter who's food insecure, but I'm like, some folks that y'all think don't need food, they need food.
I
They are
definitely
right there
think
waiting
that.
on my truck to get there.
Very, very much so in many places. And you talk about these raising rates. I mean, even with, things that are happening, it's like my gas is already $1 more.
Yeah.
Which, walking in is like brother my age, like, yo, man, can I get something to get? I'm like, yo, it's gonna be dependent upon
how much
what
I gas.
happens when I
Right.
get out of here.
I'm of an age where I would give somebody $2-3 to take me home from Cass, right?
Hey.
Like, and that would put like a couple gallons in
Hey,
somebody,
I'm
a
gonna be
gallon or
honest.
so in
I
somebody's tank.
got
$5, right?
I'm back in the day, meaning like, that means I wanted a license as soon as I turned 16. Different things going on nowadays. But yeah, when I started driving, when I started driving in 1999, gas was $1 a gallon. Like, I remember, and you
Right.
could sometimes, now I wouldn't go to these places, but it was some places that, sometimes you grab by to be like 92 cents, 87 cents. But
Yeah.
ever since some of these waves of Republican administrations, that's just like a long lost memory. And, I'm aware of like, LA is like $5 a gallon, period. That's just what you're looking at. So I can only imagine what's going to continue to come. But all of these things, like when freight, like the more it costs to get something there,
right.
that's gonna fall back on you. And here go the other thing. I hate to even go there, but like even the goofiness of tariffs. It's not like if I'm an international company and I ship 1,000 of these phones over, you're gonna put a 20% tax on me. I'm gonna just be like, oh man, that means we're gonna make 20% less profit. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my calculator and say, oh, well, it's gonna
Your
cost you
phone is gonna be
30%
20
more.
Right.
I'm just
Exactly.
passing 10% more on to you. So really, a tariff is being a tax back on us.
And the first thing after the Supreme Court ruled that the tariffs were illegal, and the money had to be given back, the first concern they had about was giving it to the corporation. The person who paid that higher price for that phone or for that item that they needed in their home is not getting any money back.
No. But even it's like this is the goofiness of something. Like, it's like some of this it's like just follow the regular logic. You know what I'm saying? Like, like if you're in business, even if you got the biggest heart, it's just not gonna be a reality when you sit around and you get to the 5 P's of pricing that you're just gonna sit and be like, oh man, we just got to take a loss. That's just not. That's not how businesses function.
Right. No, I think what we're seeing now, and I hope, and I do see this, I think, with young people, probably more than my generation, is one, I think they teach us a lot about work-life balance, right?
Yeah,
But I don't think
definitely.
that they're as apathetic as people have put upon them as them not caring.
Mm,
I think what they're doing is forcing folks to really think about how
yeah.
they can do better, right?
Mhm,
And that's in so many ways. Like, I think of
mhm,
my 20-year-old niece and how
mm,
she forces us to really think about things
mm.
differently and the way she thinks about things. But I also think, like, what I'm saying to folks now is like, yeah, I know you're frustrated, but let's figure out how we elect people who will actually get what you want done. And
Mm,
then I firmly believe, like, if they don't, we should get out and get rid of them, right? But
mhm.
like, let's not sit back and say, well, it is what it is. Let's figure out how we get people who are gonna do what they said they were gonna do, and we're gonna hold their feet to the fire for it. And I think young people are sort of driving that a little bit more than maybe my generation did. I
I
think,
I
you
I
know
think it's a little twofold. I definitely think that the waves politically, they're gonna be actions that follow a lot of what community does as well. So, one of the biggest, I'm talking sociologically right now too, but it's just what exists, like, in even in this space of, like, I do think that younger people do look at that work-life balance and definitely don't wanna get burnt out and aren't necessarily defining themselves by what they do
Right.
or where they work as much as former generations. Part of that is part of the society and culture we lived in, and I still stand as, like, especially being in Detroit my whole life, like, part of that break of that relationship were results of certain things that were done. Like when I'm, 82, like I remember going to my grandmother's retirement party and and she was, it's so funny, she was like the smallest person, but she was like running like one of the juvenile centers in Cincinnati, but like the warden, somebody from the
Yeah.
governor's office came to that. They gave her like this gold clock and it was a whole celebration. Like the iteration of that reality I've seen, you've seen, but if you're a person that's like 20, you don't
You
even
don't even
fathom
Right.
something like you
Well,
worked
you're
at the
not
same place for
right.
30
Right,
years?
exactly. I mean, listen, my parents would always say to me, like, "You leaving another job? Like, where you going?" Like, and I'd
Yeah.
be like, "Well,
This
mom,
is
this
the
is
culture
right,
of
right, right."
today. Uh,
You
so
don't stay
like
somewhere for 30,
so
35
that
years.
relationship, but in that, it also is like in this hyper individuality,
Right.
like, so it's like everything is come and go. We segment so much, and I'm not necessarily saying that we need to agree on everything, but there are some things we agree to,
Right.
and then some things we can find
Right.
like where we stand in differences. But the hyper individuality is one of the things that becomes more um it just becomes more stark the more that I see certain things, and it's so weird because it's like this basically y'all the same people, but y'all just disagree on like
Fundamental
this.
things. And I wonder sometimes if some of that has to do with the movement from, I used to not really think, like, graduations were a big
Mm,
deal, right? But then when
yeah,
COVID happened and so many kids didn't have that opportunity, and
yeah,
they were sitting in their bedrooms and, like,
mhm,
doing school online, I realized what you're talking about in terms of community and that individuality, which, we usually use the term individuality to be a good thing. And in
mhm.
some respects, it still is.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that sense of community that was lost during that
Mhm,
time has, I think, sort of created this situation where, as you said, people are just separated and they don't even really communicate in a way that they can find a commonality. They just sort of
mhm.
like, oh, this is my position and I'm striding on it. And, if you don't agree 100%.
And through these devices and the
Right.
internet, you can like get so hyper focused in a world, in a reality that I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's such a classic statistic. It's so many standard deviations away
Yep.
from, like, the reality of where people are at, like, "Okay, one second, time out, like, where are you at?" You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But you're not even necessarily, like, in that space and in that flow, and, I'm very I like you say, especially, like, locally, what we're looking at with the Sheffield administration, and through that administration, I think opportunities will present, but so much of it is also just the possibilities that people are seeing
Yeah.
by identifying. And I mean, Mary is definitely young black woman, but also you can see her track record of walking this path and where she stood with legislation and
Yep.
being the city council president and building relationships and bonds and where things stand, definitely connected to like the legacy of her family, but
Yeah.
even on her own. So
Even
like
on our own. No,
this,
absolutely.
I think, triggers other people to say like, oh, something else can exist.
Right.
I mean, we see like a Denzel McCampbell in office and like iterations and moves like this and Gabriella. And I mean, yo, straight up. I mean, Renata, you my council member. I got mad love for you too, but I'm speaking more so like how younger people look at and see opportunities and how they want to engage and act. It's like just from McCampbell's office, I know a couple people. One of them actually like worked with me like as an intern back when she was at Howard. So shout out to her. But like the way that she's engaging and shifting out information, it's like this is their iteration of what I've seen others kind of deliver over time from seeing the other council offices and, knowing like the Marcia with, Joanne Watson and, these different people that were anchors in it.
I mean, I think we want young people to engage. They need to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And that the entire group that you just mentioned, Denzel, Gabriella, Mayor Sheffield, all of them have exemplified what it looks like to be a young person involved in this work, right? And I think, unfortunately, they didn't see that. They didn't see a lot of that, right? They probably are too young for the movement that was Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And, we've had a mayor that for them is not as relatable because he's not from here initially, wasn't born in Detroit, didn't look like them, is older. So this feels like for them, similar to what the movement for Barack Obama might have felt like for us.
And that's, to me, that's what I think will be reverberated throughout many of the, like the high schools, the youth groups. Like, okay, now I see the possibility of what can exist. And this is like, I agree with this, not necessarily here, but this is how I can even introduce and it gets other things going. You know what I'm saying?
And that's okay. Like they don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about the possibility that they will engage because they see, particularly around politics, what politics can look like and what it can do if done well.
If done well, and definitely I still think that the base of the people has to be moving in some momentum too, because one of the toughest things, and I'm just speaking from, Lord knows, I've had many opinions over here, you know what I'm saying? but speaking from my angle, like if the politician is walking out and advocating for something, it's going to take other support from their constituency. So if community doesn't walk in there and present itself as like, okay, this is something that, I got to be mindful about what's going on here, it's going to make whatever the effort is so much more tough about pushing through. So that's why, like, and usually this will be, more of those OG organizations. It's a reason why, if something deals with these unions and it comes to a city council vote, a state house vote, something in county commission, or it could be even like a committee of one of them, you're going to see some people lined up and organized and connected. And I guess you could say, well, they get paid and all of that. That's part of it. But also it's like the presence of people helps the agenda of politics move forward.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, again, it goes back to your basic voting. Like if you're not voting, people aren't going to respond to you. If, people want to know, well, they don't show up in our neighborhoods. They don't show up in our cities. Well, I mean, if they don't feel like they're going to win with you, then they're not going to do anything with you. You kind of do get left out. Right. And so I think, that's been sort of, I think, a reason why there's both this narrative that people have not shown up, but then there's also this cause of it is because people don't show up, right? And like,
chicken or egg, like it's
exactly. Which one comes first? Exactly.
And the reality is our community is under resourced. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's like this doesn't help. It's like, let's say you prove this point or that point, it didn't change the reality of us resourcing our community.
And collectively, when we decide to start agreeing on some things and not just fighting for the sake of fighting, we can push an agenda that works for us and betters our city.
I completely agree because we've seen it in ways.
We've seen it so many times. Detroit has been counted out so many times, right? And there's no superhero that comes. There's no savior that comes. It is collectively people who have come together to say this is going to happen or
And,
this is not going to happen, right? And
mhm,
I mean, specifically when you're talking about every neighborhood in Detroit, it has been the people. It has been the block clubs, the community groups, the
mhm,
nonprofit organizations, the
mhm.
individual whose house just happened to be on that block who said, no, no, or
Yeah.
yes, yes, we're going to get this done.
Mhm.
And that's how it gets done.
Definitely. Many efforts. And also, like, as I've uplifted all the time, when people be like, man, you got all this equipment in here. And I'm like, yeah, these people know me for a long time. But furthermore, the garden has been one of the best ways to bring about community. I would tell you, it's going to be the best safety mechanism that you will ever have in your community, because when you put that garden in front of your house or by your house or it's connected to your house, you're going to start interacting with
And
two
engaging.
people. You're
Yep.
going to interact with elders and you're going to interact with mothers. And as you start interacting with both those populations, it's going to be the number one deterrent from anybody saying like, hey, what house can we break into?
Right.
That you're not going to be high on that list. You're going to move further down. And I'm saying it's better than the Rottweiler, the security force, or whatever's going on. By building community, that's the best way to circumvent all of the things that you think could be detrimental to you staying in a community.
And listen, there's no question that there are knuckleheads in our community who do things that are
Mhm.
terrible.
Yeah.
I also am of the belief that there are a lot of reasons why people end up in those situations, right? I've
Mhm.
often said, how long do you think you're going to be living next door to somebody who has nothing, who can't feed their
I
children,
mean, it's
and you could do it every day, and then at
mhm.
some point they're not going to, come in and say, I need something for my children. Like we
Mhm.
set up a have and have not situation. At some point, the have nots are going to be like, wait a minute, this is blatantly unfair that I have nothing and you have everything, right? And that's sort of how the country is set up right now. We have got
Yeah.
billionaires
Yeah.
who have most of the wealth of this country, and we have people
Mhm.
who can't feed their families, right?
Yeah.
And I don't
That
want it to,
dichotomy,
right,
yeah. I mean, and also, I mean, you have experience in such a I have some of some of the best stories are always from attorneys about a lot of stuff, but, like, from being an attorney, it's like, I definitely think that well, my view of a lot of crime from especially this neighborhood, going to Northwestern High School is m a large majority of it is definitely circumstantial. Do I think that, as they always say, the streets are hiring? Do I think there are a group of people that are just, like, intentionally malicious and have a criminal mindset that are always looking to, get over on people and exploit people? Yes. The thing about it is all of those people aren't even necessarily labeled as criminals in our
right,
justice system,
right,
but to have that type of personality, I don't think that's most people. And similar to that have not, some of the I mean, people hear this, but and I don't know what your take would be on this, but like um some of the most character and integrity based rules that I've seen people make are people that our society defines as criminals, because they've made so many decisions of this is when I do this is how I do that, this is how I like it's almost like a weird it's like a weird reality of like, damn, you're like, I didn't expect this from you if you don't know. And then the more you get a better understanding, it's like, oh, well, this had to happen. Well, but if you was fair, you wouldn't have dealt with
right.
that reality.
This is going to be a take that not people are not going to agree with from me, but
Uh,
you know, I was a teenager when YBI was very, very popular, right?
mhm,
And there was a whole lot of community hell, so to speak, that they
definitely.
created. But
Mhm,
I will say this, you didn't have as much random crime
yeah,
for people who were not involved in that behavior as you do now. Like
yeah,
now you may just have a random, I ran up on somebody at the gas station and
yeah.
shot some kid, or I
Mhm,
ran and, I fired on a house and somebody got killed, some innocent child got killed.
yeah.
That didn't really happen as much then. Now,
Mm-mm.
there I know that there are so many stories
Oh,
about
very
what they
much
did
so.
to neighborhoods,
Yeah,
particularly neighborhoods right around where we're
right
sitting
around
right
here.
now,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not in any way defending that.
Mhm,
But I will say that, as you mentioned, have always been criminal groups, who dealt with the people who were involved in that criminal behavior with them, but kept it to the people who chose to be a part of that criminal behavior with them, not like everybody on the street or, your grandmother or your mother gets robbed or, and we've always seen the movies and we've seen the stories and we know that. And I just, I think it's easy for us to define people by their worst moment, by some sort of crime or criminal behavior or whatever. And I think I still truly believe that for the most case, people are inherently, they want to do well.
I definitely concur with that. And then even within like the boundaries of where those rules and codes are made up. Like, I mean, I often uplift, like I say, from where as like when I say I'm square, I'm basing this on some of the people I know that I consider they're far from that.
Right.
So I always am one to uplift, and it's messed up because I know my art form has so much to do with it with hip hop, but like that glamorize, like the most dangerous person in any of that foolishness is the person that clearly has no relationship and understanding of this.
Right.
And you end up in that space. It's like you're welcoming a lot to your life and people that you don't need to welcome because at this point you're not even necessarily, connected. Like the people, it's like you don't, keep going on about your day. You don't want to involve yourself in anything in these situations, especially like when we think of things like kind of going back to recorder's court, which Detroit at one point in time had a recorder's court. The person I think that speaks about this the most, and shout out to her, retired now, Judge Deborah Thomas.
Yes.
And so many others that really, and in this space being so much closer to like the city, and we talk about like how you can serve your civic duty, because it was her that even says like, stop trying to bounce on jury duty so much.
Right.
Because
that's what happened.
It could be you.
Right.
That or your cousin or one of your family members and you looking up like, dang, got nobody black on this jury.
And not one black juror. Not one. Okay. When it changed over, and I was a practicing attorney then, and you're right, Judge Deborah Thomas lifted it up. Joanne Watson, may she rest in peace. She was we had the t-shirts and everything to save Recorder's Court. Because so many of them, and my dad being a judge there, knew that like it was going to change the dynamic of who came before. It was also going to change the dynamic of black judges getting elected in Wayne County. Right? There was a stretch there. I think it's gotten a little bit better now with some appointments and keeping, you get appointed by the governor and then you can stay. It's easier to stay on the bench and get reelected. But there was a stretch there where there
seriously,
were
like
much fewer than there had been in the 80s and the 70s and 80s, right?
The chances of you
getting a black judge got slim, very slim. And that's not to say that the black judges were being easy on people who were before them, but I think that there was a recognition, again, that phrase, but for the grace of God go I. So there was an understanding about some of the reasons why you might be standing before them.
Like the culture of even like, and first off, I think it's going to be kind of boring, but you still owe it to yourself as an American citizen to at least sit in the courtroom just to see some of the stuff that's happening. Because like they always say, it ain't nothing like TV.
It's nothing like TV.
TV is entertaining.
Like
and,
TV. Right.
And, lawyers say something cool and pull out something from their pocket like, what?
Right.
Nothing like that.
I remember some of my last cases, I would ask people if they were watching like CSI because they expected all the bells and whistles. And I was like, that's not going to happen. No. We're not going to have that. Even on the prosecutor's side, it's like, we're not going to have that. But it was a real effort to try and save Recorder's Court. Not because these judges needed to be in Recorder's Court, not because it was because they knew what was going to happen and they fought really hard. And other folks fought really hard to move it into Wayne County Circuit Court, which is how it is now. And there are probably a few people sitting behind bars somewhere who might have not been sitting behind them had we still had Recorder's Court.
Or not been there as long. Just
that part.
Some of it is... It's like cultural. Right. It's like cultural. If I'm, if you put me in the Upper Peninsula and I don't really know what's really going on with the culture, I could hear, you could present something and just my ignorance of not knowing the background, I'd be like, that don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I remember one case my dad had, and my dad, he's gone now, but so
Rest
I
in
can tell
peace,
these
rest in
stories of
peace.
him
Mhm.
without getting him in trouble. But I
Yeah.
remember he had like a father in front of him charged with, I think, like assault and battery or something. And it was
Mm.
because he had spanked his child because the
Yeah.
child had like done something, I don't know,
Mhm.
mouthed off or, and like when I
Yeah.
say child, not a little child, but like a teenager, right?
Yeah.
Or like didn't come home or took his car,
Mhm.
something like not consequential, but they had ultimately ended up charging
Yeah.
um the father.
Mhm.
You know, my dad was a black man from
From
Mount Vernon,
Alabama,
Alabama,
it's
who
like
had 2 children who, you know, he did not
yes.
spare the rod, so
Yeah,
to
see,
speak, with his
sometimes
daughter
push
or
the
his
boundaries.
son. Right,
Push the
right. You
boundaries.
push it a little too hard, and Imma push
Exactly.
back, and I remember
Uh,
right from the bench, he was
yep.
like, "Oh, if you're charging people, you're gonna need to charge me." I mean, so because I'm not gonna be feeding somebody and
Hilarious.
housing them and taking care of all their bills and giving them all the things, and they just
Yes.
go disrespect me
I feel
and I'm
that.
gonna get
That's
charged, you know.
this is that this
This is
is as
that
they
kind
say
of
that
parenting.
parenting.
This
Yes.
is that kind of understanding about the gentleman that found himself before Judge Dalton Roberson at
Oh
Frank
man,
Murphy Hall
the
of Justice
the
that was like, that's the sometimes the understanding that we may have lost, parts of which we
mhm.
may have
Yeah.
lost when we got
Yeah, like
incorporated
culturally
into
when you don't
culturally.
understand.
Right. Cultural
That's
understanding.
that
Right.
speech usually comes with the "I ain't one of your friends."
Right, right, right.
It's like, well,
Your little friends.
yeah, little I ain't one of your little friends. Yeah, when you hear that, it's like, "Oh, well,
Uh,
you're gonna be in the house all weekend."
right, right, right. Exactly.
My
Exactly.
plans shifted. But yeah, like just those cultural things. And I mean, even like the heavier thing, like and it was tough, like what's that case? That case in Pontiac last year with the mother and the children, and
Yes.
just even when Stephanie Chang was here, the whole like, yo, sometimes because childcare wasn't there, it would be times my mom would roll down the window, she learned English, she got to hop in, like we in the
Right.
car, like. It's like when you have the cultural understanding,
Right.
but if you're from a neighborhood where like it's an abundant places for
Right.
childcare, maybe even free, your thought process would be like, well, just
Why
leave the
would you
kids there.
not sign your kids up? Right.
Yep.
There's no language barrier for you. There's no cultural barrier for you. Like you said, I mean, and listen, the other piece is that you look at a situation like
Mhm.
what happened in Pontiac, which was horrible and
Very much
tragic.
so.
And,
Very much so.
God
Yeah.
help those children because they have so much trauma to get past.
Mhm.
But there's likely a huge mental health issue there with the mom because I just don't inherently believe. I mean, maybe there's some. I don't know. I don't know all the logistics of that case. But that's another thing that we got rid of. We got rid
Yeah.
of any opportunity to
Oh,
try and
man.
solve mental health before it became a criminal problem. And so we
Man.
criminalized mental health issues.
Man.
And so
Yeah.
that exploded a criminal justice system. And we started to incarcerate everybody, whether they had
Yeah.
mental health issues or addiction issues. I ultimately was so fired up because when crack became an issue in the city of Detroit and in urban communities, it
It
was
was
a criminal it was
criminalized. Yeah.
criminalized
Yeah.
immediately,
Mhm.
immediately.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, the
when
opioid
Becky from the
crisis,
burbs started
it
coming
was
down here and getting
yeah,
high on heroin and
yeah.
overdosing because fentanyl was in
It's
the
a
heroin,
it's a health
then it
it's
was
a
a
health
health issue.
crisis. Yeah.
I don't want Becky to overdose,
Nah,
but I didn't
I
want.
didn't want my cousin getting locked
Right,
up for forever
exactly.
either. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, let's be realistic about what
Mhm.
we have done
Yeah.
and how we've done things and navigating how we get out of where we've been pushed to because of government and other places that have not recognized or have recognized the things they want to criminalize versus the things they
Yeah,
don't.
and sometimes I'm a which this is where the you sound crazy, but Imma just lend it to I think a lot of it's ignorance as opposed to like being malicious. Like I say, I'm leaning on I think most people have a heart and want to empathize with one another. But if you just don't know the context to it, you'll never have an understanding. Hence,
Right.
that's why cultural representation is advantageous across the board wherever you are, because if you don't have it, then you're going to end up, you know what I'm saying? Like you're going to end up doing something for people, or you know what I'm saying? You're going to bring a bunch of regular hot dogs to a place where people don't eat pork. And they're going to
Right.
be like, oh, they don't like us. They
Right.
ain't even eating
Right.
our food.
Right.
It's like, well, you didn't
Right.
bring food to eat. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like some of this stuff is common sense. Hence, even like more of the divisions of like diversity, equity, inclusion, it's like, and it's other layers of that, but it only helps it becomes more of an advantage for everything that's happening. And we're at a point in this country where any number you call, and this is the goofiness sometimes of it, any number you call, it's going to immediately give you a Spanish option. And that includes the Internal Revenue Service.
Right.
So that means, like, clearly, if our government has a Spanish option,
right,
then it obviously recognizes that you wouldn't have that option if it wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And you expect that they will pay their taxes. And if they don't, you will find somebody who can speak in their language to get their taxes. So I don't know why
we can interpret this.
We can interpret this. And when they send you that bill, they're going to make sure you can read it and write that check and pay their taxes. I'm like, what in the world? Really?
Actually reminds me of, like, talking court. This is another great legend. And I met her through Judge Workham, Judge Millender. It's like a stop.
Yes.
If people drive down Glendale, it's like a double stop between between 14th and Linwood. It's like a double stop, right? And an officer was like sitting right there, like getting everybody. So they got me, and it's just like a sloth of different people in for Judge Millender. And there was this African guy, and his accent was so strong. I'm like, yo, I figured this was about to work. And Judge Millender... Judge Millender was a sweetheart too for everybody that day too. But she was like, "Look, I know what you're trying to do. You acting like you don't understand. If you got a license, you understand. As far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't have even been down here. Now, if you keep doing that, you're gonna get the worst penalty than everybody." And I was like, right before, I was like, "Oh man, it's about to get rough."
You were like, okay, I'm gonna try that after all. Maybe I don't try my accent that I don't really have, but I was gonna try it.
I was like, man, this guy was stinking. Should have had my dashiki. It was from there to not giving any of you guys points because of what happened, but you do gotta pay.
Right.
If you don't pay by this time, you're getting points.
Points.
Judge Millender was another just colorful
characters. They were all characters.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was a stretch there. Oh, excuse me. There was a stretch when all of them were characters, when you talk about who was on the bench, Judge Baxter, Judge Strong, all of them. Like it was a very different place, different characters, something going on every day, all the time.
I can only imagine. Judge Strong is just funny today.
Yeah.
But all right, we get to a close here. And this was fun, and I got to bring you back. I don't even know what collaboration, but
I know. I feel like we still didn't go. We haven't even,
It's so much more. So much more. So we're going to definitely we may do something on Focus Hope grounds. I ain't done nothing at Focus Hope in a minute.
Come on over.
So yeah,
set up. You can do some stuff over there. Yeah. We got 2 conference rooms. We got a bridge. Come on over.
Yeah, I've done stuff over there.
There you go.
And yeah, you guys did like some hip hop stuff. I was like, oh, Merciless Amir in here.
We did. I grew up with Amir.
For real?
Yes.
Oh man,
I love Amir. I grew up with him. That's why we had him. We had him at Sneakers and Speakers last year.
Yeah. Yep. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm coming. And I was like, yeah, that's my guy. Merciless Amir is like in my mind, he's like a Rakim of Detroit rap, Day Without a Rhyme, greatest MC. I mean, Eminem shouts him out in his induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like,
he is fantastic. And that I've known him since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means you knew his dad and collecting all that stuff. Like when that interview, I was like, your dad was traveling the world collecting artifacts and stuff. Like your dad was like Indiana Jones.
And he brought with him this guy, Tony, who played bass for...
Oh, yeah, Tony Green.
Yes.
T-Money Green.
And I knew Tony because my girlfriend, Lauren, who's from Southfield, Detroit, who we went to college together, she... used to sing background for like Mary J. Blige and Snoop Dogg and all of them. And so she knew Tony because of that. And so when Amir brought him to Focus Up, I was like, they introduced me and I was like, Tony Green. And I knew his ex-wife. And I was like, I texted her real quick. I was like, Tony Green is here. Don't I know? And she was like, yes. And so then I went and told him. He was like, oh my God, Lauren. Yeah.
T-Money Green. And Khan was on it. I was like, I was like, I already had a menu.
So good. Yeah, he was so good. I mean, first of all, we've done Sneakers and Speakers for a couple years. I know you're trying to wrap up.
No.
And we have different themes. This year's going to be fashion in Detroit, right? Okay. I wish I had the date, but I'll get you the date. But we did hip hop last year. We did music because it
Mm.
wasn't just hip hop. It was
Okay.
Khan was our like sort of our moderator
Okay.
MC, but we had Amir, we
Mm.
had Tony, we had Bruce Bailey.
Oh, for real? Okay.
And then we had one of our future leaders of Focus Up. We've started a group that's more of our younger people,
I
maybe
got you.
younger in career, maybe younger in age, because
Mhm.
basically I'm trying to mentor them in a way and give them some
Mhm.
understanding about board meetings and all that so they can take my job in a few years. I
Got you,
need it
got
right
you.
now, but in a few years.
Hilarious.
And she was gospel. She was very, she's a gospel artist.
Okay.
So it was, packed and nobody left. Like,
Mm.
we've had other ones and they were just getting started a couple years ago. So, it was kind of a light touch, but that one was so good. Like, so good. Everybody had questions. And so, yeah.
Yeah, y'all had Q making food on the
Yeah,
side. I ain't
yeah,
seen
yeah,
Q
yeah.
in forever. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, I got some good healthy
Yeah.
food here.
Yeah.
And another thing that happens every year, podcasting. Miles does the podcast, the Potskers every year at Focus Hope. So
Yep.
it's like a big, most Detroit podcasters are like in that mix. So it's some synergy
Yes.
and all types of cool
Yes.
stuff that happens.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
We will
Definitely.
set it up so you guys
Yeah.
come back over and do something like you do Detroit is different over at Focus Hope.
Yeah, that would be that actually would be something that would be fun. We can definitely do it. Some people that I just got mad love for that still work over there.
Okay.
Yolanda Kinney.
Yes.
So many others, what
So
I'm saying?
many.
Yeah,
You've been in the
definitely.
neighborhood. Focus Hope has lots of people who've been there for years.
Mhm.
They predate me.
Yep.
They've been really pulling Focus Hope along during
Mhm.
times when it was really sort of
Yeah.
it was really sort of, when your founder passes away, your founders. But when
Yeah.
Eleanor passed, it's hard. It's hard to find your footing. It's hard. No, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, Eleanor used to. I'm like, I'm not Eleanor. And look, I wish I had the pull that Eleanor did. I wish, I had all of that. But, you got to find your footing again. So,
Yeah,
and
that-
they have helped make sure we found our footing.
Yeah, one of those like you're not like the people she knew at this time. Like
Yeah.
it actually was through Judge Morcom telling me Eleanor's story. She was like, she was talking about because George Morcom definitely connected with a lot of like socialist and communist countries, but still just uplifting what humanity would be. And one time she needed something from the United Nations. So she just happened to be like bump into Eleanor. And then she was like, let me just call Kofi Annan. And it's like, damn. It's like,
Right. That's how it was. That's look, when
like,
when there was a tough time making payroll, Eleanor
Mm.
just called up somebody at Ford. Like, hey, I'm gonna
Yeah.
need $100,000 to get through this next pay run and
Mhm.
we'll get it back.
Yeah.
I was
And-
like,
and-
uh-oh. Like, is that what
and-
y'all are expecting from me?
But tougher, like
Right.
when we think of even the just so much as culture, I will give this preface just so people know in it, like when you think of okay, the size of that how Focus Hub grew and the size it grew to, you're looking at like a you're walking at like a multi-million-dollar sometimes over like $100 million nonprofit organization that had so many relationships, even with that time, not just the big three, but tier 2, tier
Yep.
1, tier 2, 3, 4 suppliers, and it's just like a different reality of a lot was functioning throughout Metro Detroit and Michigan itself,
Yeah.
and really even America.
Yeah.
So like the reality of then to now, it's just a lot has shifted in so many
Yeah.
other just ways that things function.
Well, and I
know?
think, the business community changed. And so that was a huge part of it. When Eleanor and Father Cunningham were starting Focus Hope and in the years, in the what I like to call the heydays, the automotive industry was booming,
Very much so.
and we've had to sort of figure out our diversification of funding sources and all that kind of stuff because we realized, like, as the automotives go, we were so closely tied that if they were having a rough time, Focus Hope was going to have a rough time, we're lucky. We're still a $40 million organization, which is
it's-
not small.
No.
I used to say I run a small nonprofit, and somebody was like, "Girl, it's not really small.
Hilarious.
You need to
Hilarious.
slow that down a little bit."
Hilarious.
But we got to figure it out, and I think that's life, right? You got to figure it out. You got to evolve. You got to change. I tell the staff, the leadership team, I'm like, we're like sharks. If we don't keep moving, we'll die, you know? So we got to keep innovating. We got to keep thinking about new things. We're still going to stick to the core of what we know how to do at Focus Hope, unless and until a big thing that I think we can really tackle comes about. But, you know, how do we grow? How do we make sure more people know that we're here and are coming to us, trusting us with helping them wherever they may be? And so that's what my hope is for Focus Hope as we move forward.
Yeah, and I do think that there are some opportunities that will present itself, but similar to Focus Hope. I mean, we even look at the state of Michigan, things just shift and it's hard to even really express the way that the automotive industry culture impacted not just the big three, but like the functions of almost like everything around this. It was one of my big critiques when I get into all these debates about the rebuild of the train station, and I was the whole thought process is like, we want to get some of the most creative tech leaders, and I'm like, the culture is just different. We got a culture, which is one of the things I think a lot of people don't like, but, it's a lot of meetings and this stuff comes from, the General Motors pedigree of success,
Right.
which that General Motors pedigree of success, I mean, it was like, General Motors was huge. So it reverberated with everything around of just the culture, how work gets done, the meetings, building teams and everything. Some of it definitely assets, but now you just got to shift. And I think some of those shifts have been made over time. And as that continues to happen, it just opens up new opportunities.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I can definitely tell you, in 2005, if you was doing business in Detroit, you was gonna have a meeting for the meeting,
and a meeting after the meeting,
and another meeting about what the meeting was about.
I sat in I probably spent a couple years of my life in meetings. I mean, and now I'm like, I hate that COVID came, but thank God for a Teams call. And even though sometimes I'm like, I don't need to see you face to face. We don't need to be on a Teams call. We have to deal with the glitches of computers. We just talk on the phone. I'm old school. I can still talk on the phone.
Hey,
it still works. I can still hear you. You can still hear me.
Because I'm telling you, that culture back in the 90s. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody wanted to meet.
It was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? I'm the kid sitting in the back of the office. My dad go through meetings.
Right.
It's like, this was, or my granddad especially. But all right, classic Detroit is different questions now.
Okay.
Classic.
Okay.
Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
A Grand Prix. It was my mother's. It was blue.
Okay.
It had upholstered interior.
Okay.
And I remember she had an 8-track in the car.
Okay.
And there was a point where they had these things where you could sit in the 8-track and you could put a cassette in there and you could play a cassette.
It
was like a modifier.
Okay.
Yeah, you put the cassette in this little square thing, you stuck that in the 8-track and the cassette would play. And that was my first car.
There we go. So it was like you got your sounds.
I got my sounds.
Ready.
I thought I was doing it big too.
All right. Where's the first place you went with your ride?
Probably school. Now that I will say, I had been driving before then because my parents were like, you can at least drive to the store. And, I took driver's training in Mumford back when they had the track right out front.
Yes.
So I probably officially drove to school, but I've been driving through the neighborhood and stuff.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, that was back. Yeah. That 16, you got a kid that's you got a kid in driver's training 15 and 16.
You can run up to drive
anywhere.
You can ride to Save-On and get this eggs and this milk that I need.
I get it. Let me get the ride. You know what I'm saying? But still, nothing's better.
Right.
Nothing's better than having your ride.
Your ride.
Go past them people at the bus stop.
Right, because I took the Hamilton for a lot of years before both the Northland and DeKalb. So
the Hamilton.
The Hamilton.
A lot of colorful stories. A lot of culture on that.
A lot of culture. A lot of culture.
It's like the Hamilton was it was like the Woodward for the Woodward.
Oh my gosh. I remember the Hamilton bus driver. One, he would get on the lodge sometimes.
Oh man.
And we would be flying and I know it was unsafe. And sometimes if he would be like, is anybody getting off at Highland Park? HP, but he called it Little Compton, which is terrible.
Hilarious.
If not, I'm going straight through. That's two of my first memories of the Hamilton bus.
I'm texting that to Coco. as soon as we finish.
Don't get me in trouble with anybody. I saw the mayor
I'm
Highland
gonna just
Park
say,
last
say
week. I'm not getting in trouble. The bus driver said it. I did not. I just remember it.
Shout out to Mayor McDonald. But just little comment. Yeah, that's when you knew you was getting it right. Yeah, when the bus driver be like, "Hey, anybody stopping over here?" It's
Right.
like, keep
If
it
not,
going.
I'm gonna keep going. Okay.
Keep going.
Right.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, no, boy, that would definitely be, to get on the freeway. It's like, oh, you get home.
We got on
fast,
the freeway.
You know, like, you take the bus long
Not
enough.
a seatbelt in sight, but okay.
Oh, yeah, back in the day.
No.
Back in the day. All right. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
Oh, Woodward and Jefferson. Okay. I'm playing likely fireworks, though. So wide range of folks.
Yes.
I might hit them with a Frankie Beverly and Maze.
Okay.
But then my second choice is going to be Blow the Whistle by Too Short.
Okay. All right. It's going to be like a party and a
hustle song.
Okay. I'm with it. Like both
you get
together.
Both. You get, fireworks, you always
turn up
got.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm with it. I'm with it. It's you definitely going to have a
I
crowd.
played Bring
going.
'Em Out. I came out to Bring 'Em Out at my wedding.
Okay.
Yeah, and I quoted Jeezy in my wedding vows, so there's that.
There we go. That is
so I do kind of have, as my husband would say, trap ears.
Hilarious. Hilarious. That is funny. That is very funny. Like, as you like this one. I didn't get them yet. When I went to Atlanta, I did not get my Mozzie Ski interview, but that's coming soon. It's coming soon. He was like, yo, man, I'm dropping a project and I'm coming at you. So yes. We will get we'll get that together.
Do that one at Focus Hope. No.
Oh, that would be fun. If you come back to the crib, I may try to, if I do that one, we bring Nikki D, which now is, doing all of the stuff.
All of the
rights
things.
And everything.
Right.
But I'm going to say she Nikki D. And
right.
We're going to do old school hip hop for sure. I'll even get DJ Los in effect. It'll be a whole we were rappers before rappers. We'll probably get some of the young dudes I'm cool with too. Young people be like, it's a premise.
I love it.
All right. Love it. And last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Ooh. Well, I think I would name it after Coleman Young.
Many people choose him.
Why is that your choice? Why? I think, his impact on how young Detroiter or any Detroiter saw themselves is legendary. I don't think there will ever be anybody, certainly any politician that had a greater impact on this city. I think he understood politics in a way that so many people don't. He was probably the person who created the political machine that people talk about. Because he understood how it could work that it wasn't a bad thing. It could work for people. And I just, I look at where we are today and I appreciate the fact that there has been growth in Detroit and that it has been, that new people have come to Detroit. But I miss the fact that Mayor Young would have reminded people that nobody discovered or saved Detroit but the Detroiters that have been here.
I love that. And he's uplifted the most when I asked that question. But I was speaking to this with my project manager the last week because I was talking about somebody that's working on this project we're working on. And for a person that's not from Detroit, for you guys to kind of understand this, he hasn't been in office in
25 years at least.
Yeah, I'd say maybe like 30 plus.
Maybe so. Yeah.
So
no, definitely 30. Because I think it was like 92 when he left or something like that. Yeah.
But if you're in the room with anybody, and they definitely gonna be an OG that worked in his administration, that's gonna be the first thing that they're gonna walk in with. They'll be like, I did this for Coleman. And you'd be like, damn, how long am I gonna hear this? Which, it's a good thing to hear, but I just think to myself, I don't think I've ever experienced it. Like, almost like this, I'm speaking this, and it's on my resume.
Right. And I don't think you would ever go to another city where when you ask that question, they'd be like, Ed Koch in New York, or, who, I don't even know, like how far can you go back with, like, Marion Barry, but for a whole lot of different reasons, I don't think they're naming a street after him. But, there's something about, and I think it has a lot to do with where Detroit was at that time, right?
Yeah.
we're talking about stress. We're talking about police brutality. We're talking
Yeah.
about Black folks living in a city that didn't recognize them as full humans, basically,
Mhm.
talking about, what started the rebellion here. Like, so I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of reasons why we still revere him in the ways that we do.
But it's just still like it's just so shocking because I know you've heard it your whole life too. It's like this person that has enough of a resume where they really don't even necessarily need to
Lead with that.
list
Right.
any accolade.
Right.
That's the accolade that
Right.
they listed first.
Right.
It's like, damn.
Right.
Like decades down the line, this is what person's leading with.
Well, and I think, when we look at all the people that have come in
Yeah.
different offices, whether it's city council, whether it's state reps, state senators,
Yep.
commissioners, certainly the mayors after him, none of that exists but for Coleman Young. Like,
Yeah.
he opened the door, right? So, like, there will be a day. I'm a believer that there'll be a day, it'll probably be long after I'm gone, where we would have had a Westmore as president, and we would have had a Max Frost as president, and we would have maybe had a Jasmine Crockett as president, and
Yeah.
somebody will ask the question about a street in D.C., and somebody will say Barack Obama, and it'll be
Yeah.
because none of them would have existed but for Barack Obama. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's a similar reason why Coleman Young is still the name that I call out, because I think all the things that we have seen, some bad, some great, some all, normal, whatever, par for the course, all of that is because we had the opportunity to be led by a man who I think put Detroit first and Detroiters first.
Yes, definitely. And if you can get some of those stories, even more so, because
Yeah.
many of stories that go back so long, and it's like, for real?
Yeah.
For real.
For real.
Thank you so much.
You
Thank
are
you
so
much.
welcome. I had such a good time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it took so long to get
Nah.
it done, but I'm willing to come over here and talk whatever you want me to. You can see I like to talk.
Yeah.
I just come over here and conversations
I'm
with
just
you.
jaw-jacking about everything too. And like you say, it's more to talk about, but doing it at Focus Up would be like a different feel.
Okay.
I could
We'll make it happen.
bring up some more of my Eleanor stories. I'm gonna lay out one. I have
Hey,
funny
works
stories
for
with her
me.
too. 'Cause that would
Works
be
for
like,
me.
Peace.